Welcome to the LivXplore Podcast. If you like what you hear, please hit like and subscribe.
Hello everyone, I'm Sean Payne, principal and founder of LivXplore Real Estate and Lifestyle. Today I have with me our founding agent, Isaiah Chass. Isaiah, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely.
And I also have another agent with us, Alyssa Rumrill. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, definitely.
Who also works with Beautiful Places. And Beautiful Places is the premier short-term luxury rental agency here in North
Sonoma
America.
County.
Oh,
Definitely in Napa County.
Okay.
And-
In the North Bay.
Mhm.
But their reach extends all throughout North America and the Caribbean, isn't that?
Correct. So
Okay.
we also own a company in the U.S. Virgin Islands. So we actually have a nice presence down there as well. St. Thomas, St. John, and as well as some of the British Virgin Islands. We have properties in as far east in this country as the Hamptons. And so we're just expanding all the time.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess like it goes without saying that you guys have a very good understanding of the short-term rental market, not only here locally and regionally, but East Coast and somewhat internationally that way.
Yeah, and I specifically have been working in short-term rentals since long before Airbnb was even a thing. And so working with different countries, I was working with Italy for a long time. And so it's something that every single place has their own little nuances as to what's going on. Sonoma County being one of the ones that has a lot of nuance to.
Sure.
And
Right.
Beautiful Places has been here for almost 20 years working with owners, with clients, and bringing high-end luxury guests into Sonoma County, again, long before it was kind of a popular
The thing to do,
thing.
right.
Mhm.
Yeah, they were there long before Airbnb and those the other short-term rental agencies that way.
Yeah.
Very, very cool, very cool. Well, again, thank you for joining us, and you're a wealth of knowledge in this area. Before we jump into like what's going on in the market, is there any like current legislation that you see coming down the road at the state level or anything like that? Is there anything? I mean, I know there's always seems like there's always new restrictions being put on short-term
Yes,
rentals.
definitely.
So is there anything affecting it that way?
So throughout the country, every single locality is figuring out right now what to do with this boom that's happened over the last few years in short-term rentals. And every single community has different needs, right? Sonoma County has really decided to focus on this in the last year.
Is that unincorporated Sonoma County?
Yeah, so good point. So unincorporated Sonoma County works a little bit differently than each individual city. Most of the cities at the moment are really not allowing very much expansion. So a lot of the focus is on these unincorporated areas where there is still opportunity to add vacation rentals and just kind of work with the rules. May is when we're supposed to have our permits our moratorium stops on the holding of the permits in May. So that's been happening since May of 2022,
Right.
and even before then it was really, really backed up. So not many people have gotten a permit at all in the unincorporated Sonoma County and really in the cities either in the last 2 years. We are not totally sure it's actually going to happen in May. It
Could be
very
extended.
well get extended. We'll know
Right.
at the beginning of April.
Right.
The infrastructure is not really there yet with the Sonoma County permitting to really think that knowing how many permits are sitting there backed up, that's so
gonna
much
take a while to
work. It's going to
process,
take a while
certainly.
to process. And what they're going to do, because they know that, is actually they're going to try to get through all of them in a row, but then everybody's fees are actually going to be due on different schedules so that the actual permit department doesn't get overwhelmed every year with 1,000 permits
That
at the
makes sense.
exact
Right.
same time.
Right.
So
Sure.
that's kind of an interesting thing that they've changed around. But some of the rules that went into effect in 2022 that have definitely affected people's short-term stays are like the timing. You cannot be loud after 9 p.m. at a vacation rental. I have had some vacation rental owners be upset about that when their next door neighbor can be loud until 10
Sure.
p.m., but they're not allowed to do that,
Right.
You can't get a permit at all anymore for a house over 6 bedrooms. So that's
Oh wow.
great for parties, for stopping parties, but I work in a lot of unincorporated Sonoma County, big houses and
Couple
properties.
families
Yeah,
go
that
on
are
vacation
far
together.
away from everybody. It
Right.
actually won't really affect anyone. So I think there's room for nuance there.
And these are huge estate properties.
Exactly.
They're not,
There's no one
small.
around. There's literal miles between them.
Right.
But they're just trying to get through the first part of this new legislations first before that. But we'll continue to keep pushing for that. So
Wow.
some local stuff that's
So
going on.
there's a lot of stuff happening.
Yeah,
And
always.
is that 6-bedroom restriction? Is that something recent that's just recently?
That yes, they're so
Really?
you can't
Okay.
now, like in the application lineup there is right now. Now nobody can put one in for something more. You can have an estate that's 8 bedrooms, but you're only ever going to get a permit for 12 people.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
How about ADUs? What's the permitting, or not permitting, but application process like for that? For
short-term rentals, it's the same thing. They consider it the same thing. They're just saying, okay, how much, when you put in your permit, you just say what type of a unit it is. But there's no, that's just based on size, so there's never going to be more than a certain number of people. But
they are allowing.
They are allowing them. I mean, we'll see how many of these get approved, because
Right.
a lot of them are backed up, and probably a lot of people have put in permits for things that aren't actually going to go, because there's this huge boom right now. For the last couple years, people are all of a sudden like, oh, I can use this extra space in a different way. And so they've been so excited for the last year and then stalled out without getting a
Right,
permit. So
right.
unfortunately, I think there are going to be people who have been waiting for a year for a permit and then might find out that their basement situation is just not going to work.
Yeah.
Or be permitted at all. So that'll be interesting to see how many of the big backup actually get approved.
Process. Yeah, sure. That makes sense. So, just locally here in the North Bay, Sonoma, Napa area, what are your expectations for 2023? I've seen some data that 2022 ended better than expected in short-term rentals, but I just don't know. I mean, just like all real estate data right now, everything's all over the place. I'm hearing other things.
Yeah.
We've talked about that. It seems like the expectations really are softening. So maybe some of the reports I'm hearing are more just trying to be positive and things like that. So
Well, you see a lot of this stuff comes from AirDNA,
yeah,
right?
that's where I got it.
So the funny thing about AirDNA is that they're just looking at data. They're not looking at actual bookings. And in Airbnb and VRBO, when an owner or anyone, a manager of a property blocks out space, you can choose not to say what it's for. So they're looking at blocked out space as bookings.
Oh.
And
I
there's a
see.
lot of people who are blocking out space for themselves
Personal,
or
whatever.
for whatever income based stays, or their uncle or something. So that is one part where that AirDNA stuff gets skewed. We
I
did
see.
show at the end of December, we ended actually better than we thought as well. However, we've had a lot of cancellations in January. So it was kind of this weird thing where people got kind of maybe excited and booked some stays, and then...
And now they're canceling.
Yes, and
I see.
one thing about VRBO and Airbnb is they want to make it easier for clients to cancel. This is harder on the owners, this is harder on the managers, and so we're not really thrilled about that.
You mean so currently their policies are changing to allow it become
Correct.
easier for people to cancel, probably
Yes.
because of what's going on with the economy and with them.
Yeah, people
These
are
rental
booking
agencies want to make the consumer make it as easy for the consumer as possible,
Yeah.
kind of predicting what's going to happen that way.
yeah.
And I
So
imagine it probably helps bookings as well, because if people have the option to cancel, then
yeah.
they might put something on the books rather than waiting.
Right.
If they know they can't cancel.
Yeah, I've seen a few people booking multiple properties though,
Really?
knowing they're going to cancel one. So that's also frustrating
Oh,
on our
sure.
end.
Probably just to secure it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would think that would be short-lived. I mean, just look at the reservations for restaurants now. How more and more restaurants are now charging a fee that if you don't show up. So yeah, we'll see. I wonder. I mean, I think it's reasonable
Yeah.
to be a little bit more restrictive on cancellations, but we'll see how that happens.
Yeah, I mean, it's going the other way with Airbnb. Like I said, they just launched something that is tricky So Airbnb is really trying to lean into the 30-night or longer market. Now that is a market that I work in a lot because it's more of the luxury homes.
Okay.
And the homes that are big, beautiful homes but haven't gotten a short-term permit, or say they're in Napa where you really can't really get a short-term permit.
Okay.
So Airbnb has been contacting management companies like Beautiful Places and saying, we want all your long terms, put them all on our site. People love to see them.
Interesting.
We want them. And at the same time, they implement policies like they did a couple weeks ago that essentially says, okay, so a month-long client can now book my property for June, a really popular month. But now they're allowed to cancel 100% refund if it's outside of 28 days prior. So now I'm in May.
So you can book up behind hot summer months and then cancel it,
Yes.
and then someone's potentially lost. Wow. I
So we're not sure how this. I can't imagine other property owners are happy with this.
Yeah.
It just, it's something that I think they're going to get. And this is often the Airbnb thing: is they implement these things that are really good for them, and then
just
slowly
push back
back
and then
off
pull
a
it back.
little bit,
Sure.
a little bit, and
Right.
not completely, so that they still get
Right.
something that they want. So. That is new and unfortunate because we're like, well, we have owners that will not sign up to your program with that.
Right.
Also, they're really pushing it, not requiring it, but pushing the instant book feature. Now, an instant book on one of our properties, say that's $80,000 a month. Do I want somebody to book it sight unseen without me talking to them, knowing what's going on? Who is this person?
I
Are
see.
they likely to cancel?
Right.
You know?
Now, let's just go with Beautiful Places. That's something that when you're renting one of these nice estates, that's a process that you've put in place that way to make
Yeah.
sure that the appropriate renters are going in there and
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's the trust, and that's why we've been able to have such a beautiful range of homes over these years, because these are homes that owners are not putting on the market themselves on the rental market. They're not just having anybody rent it. They really trust Beautiful Places and just high-end companies in general to be doing that. So, we have to be on Airbnb, and at the same time, it's becoming a little bit more difficult with those long-term
It's a
stays.
love-hate relationship.
Always,
Right,
always,
right.
yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Verbo's much easier to work with, I will say that.
Are they?
I do find that they are less restrictive in a lot of ways with their cancellations to owners. And they protect their clients too, but they charge a bit more. So.
Sure.
One charges the property owner, one charges the tenant, correct?
Right. So Verbo is charging the tenant the fee. It's around 3 to 5% per booking.
Okay.
So yeah.
Interesting. So getting back to the market expectations, so obviously bookings, the reality is that there's less bookings, and so it seems that homeowners are trying to adjust, and that's why they're going to potentially. I mean, ideally, I would think most people would want to do like a short-term rental. Keep the people in their home as little as possible that way.
Yes.
But because those reservations aren't filling up, they're adapting and going to like a longer 30-day model period.
They can't get the permit.
Oh, they
is
can't get the
mostly
permit?
why, yeah.
Is the rental rate less over those 30 days, or
Yes, it absolutely is.
Sure,
And
so-
that's another funny thing about the
Right.
way Airbnb lists it. Even on those month-longs, they break it out by day. So they're like, oh, I can get this place for $1,000 a night, when that other place that doesn't look as nice is $3,400 a night for a short-term.
But you have to do
stay.
it for that 30-day
Yeah,
period.
so we have a
Certainly.
lot of calls of, but I'll pay you this amount for 4 days or whatever. So there's a lot of that going on.
Uh-huh.
It is true that right now we have more of these luxury homes on the market for rental in general, short and long term, than there are people looking for them right now.
Right.
Because we
Yep.
had that big boom of tech people coming up here and staying short term and long term. And as we know, unfortunately, very recently also, the tech companies have really taken a hit. There's been a lot of layoffs, and a lot of those people actually bought up here in the last couple of years. And now those clients are coming to us and saying, can you rent out my property for longer? At the same time where there's less of those clients coming.
Sure.
I'm finding what's doing really well right now is our luxury apartments. So we have luxury apartments and condos in Napa and in Sonoma. and those are booking all the time.
Now, is that short or is that
Short term.
And those are allowed to get a permit?
They already have a permit.
They
So
already
there's
have
certain areas. So like we have these condos, these luxury condos in the Silverado Resort neighborhood, and they're allowed to have short-term rentals there.
Okay.
And those have been extremely popular because you
Right.
still have access to a pool. It's not your own pool, but it's a very beautiful. You're in Silverado. It's a beautiful area. So those have been really popular. We have a couple apartments in downtown Sonoma that have been really popular. But I think in general, as far as the short-term market, we're really moving towards shorter stays. So our minimum night stays have lowered. That's kind of our strategy right now, lowering minimum night stays and keeping rates the same. We're not lowering rates really, except for maybe low season. We have more of a disparity between our high and low season pricing just to get more people here in the off season.
I see. Let's go back to the luxury condos that are being rented. Are those return clientele that you've had before, or are those new clientele?
You know, some of them, yes, because a lot of people come here for business, especially in Napa, and they do book these 2 and 3 bedroom units because they're perfect for their families while they're doing business. And so we do have a lot of repeat there. And a lot of those people started during the pandemic. We're coming up here to do deals and stuff like that, and maybe stayed a few weeks.
Were those people at that time going for the more like estates or luxuries, and they're kind of going now for the condos? Are they reducing what they rented before, or?
That's a good question. I do think some of them are for
okay.
sure. Not as big of groups are traveling together, right? So
Right.
it's like smaller groups. So they might have booked a place with 2 other families 2 years ago, and now they're like, we're just going to come up for a weekend with the fam and, you know, just have a short stay. And so there's more of that happening.
There is more of that. Okay.
And they're just more affordable for something still really nice and luxury. It's like a much lower
You get all
price.
the amenities and things
Because
of
there's
that
no
nature.
pool, there's no hot tub. You are technically attached to things, but these are luxury spots so that they can still feel that it's almost closer to your hotel-like stay, right? And which people have always felt comfortable with. So this is almost like a middle ground that people are booking right now.
Sure, that makes sense. Are you seeing anyone going to like longer term than 30 days, like 6 months, a year? Are you almost saying, hey, can you rent mine out for the next year or something like that?
We have owners asking that for
that's
sure.
what I mean,
As far as the clients go, there's less of it.
No, not the clients, but the owners.
Yeah,
Are they adjusting
yes.
and saying, hey, look, I'm not getting I got to figure out some way to protect my rate of return
That's
here.
exactly
Can we go
right.
to like a 6 or 12 month?
Yeah.
And you are starting to hear that. So.
Yeah, people have really, bought a lot of properties, a lot of luxury properties in the last couple years.
Sure.
A lot of second, third homes in the last couple years that maybe they would be selling right now, but it's not a great time for them, right? For whatever reason.
Well, they bought at the high time.
Exactly.
Yep.
It's not really ideal. So a lot of those people are kind of panicking. I've never really seen this much anxiety in owners of these large estates in the 15 years that I've been doing this. Typically, the people that we're working with, it's like, oh yeah, okay, so we can wait a couple months. Now, when you sign a new home onto this, I mean, owners are hoping for a renter like quick because they just are looking for cash.
Yep.
And do you think this was an expectation when they bought the home or estate that they
Seems
were going
new.
to have?
It seems like they've kind of shifted the way they've thought about the property and what they were even going to use it for.
So it's probably more almost a financial hardship situation.
Yes, sense of urgency at this point.
I'm seeing that, for sure.
Yep.
And it's hard with the anxiety with the owners because, we absolutely can market as much as we can, but if there's only this many people and that many houses, it's tricky. Now we're going to go into summer. I think that we're going to find that people are booking these houses a little bit closer to the stay. So I do feel confident that in May and even in June we'll start getting those, because August, September, October is really like our peak time.
Okay.
So I do think that people are just going to be booking a little bit closer to their stay. We even saw that last year. Now, all the time, Beautiful Places has multi-month guests in-house. We have them right now. We have them throughout every year. It just raises and lowers depending on what's happening in the market, how many of those we have at any given time.
Sure. Okay.
Out of curiosity, how many owners approach you to rent it short term that might not be able to obtain a permit or even be in a place that they'd never be able to get a permit to rent
Good
it short term?
question.
Isaiah's asking this because he runs our long-term property management
Yeah.
program here, as you know, and so he gets those questions a lot about people calling up and be like, "Oh, I'm going to short-term rental it when they can't," or something like that.
Yeah.
So,
As many times as you get it, I also get it, for sure. Because, like you mentioned earlier, of course somebody would rather have somebody in their house, 9 days out of a month instead of 30, and also be able to access their own home. Because most of these people bought their home to be able to use it, not even if they are in hardship, they still want to be able to use it sometimes. So when we give them the hard news that, hey, you might not be able to get that short term, then they go, okay, well, then I'll only do like a 90-day lease at a time or something like
And I
that.
think a lot of people see things on the internet and articles that say you could rent your home for 9 days out of the month and get a higher rate of return than if you rent it long term. And I don't know if it's a realistic expectation of a lot of people.
Yeah, it's kind of a sales thing,
Yeah,
right?
it is,
Like that's really what it is.
Right.
That sounds great. So why
Right.
wouldn't
And then
somebody
there's
say
reality.
that?
Yeah,
and then
that-
the reality is not that necessarily right now. And also you can look at other years and be like, yeah, that totally was the reality.
Right.
We're just in a weird time right now.
Yep.
And it's been so up and down. And just as you can tell from what I've been saying, as far as like how many people were coming during COVID and how many people were coming in the
Right.
years after COVID, and now we're in this housing market crash,
Right.
so it's always changing. And unfortunately the regulations are across the United States becoming harder and harder as more and more people want to put their house on the short-term rental market.
Being that you guys do have a presence on the East Coast and in the Caribbean, are you seeing the same? Are the trends happening the same way across the board, or are you seeing maybe certain regions being affected more? I'm assuming it'd be kind of similar, but
Yeah, like talking about like the Hamptons, for example.
Right.
It's they would definitely say they're a different market than us for sure, but the luxury market is a similar story that's going on there.
right. So they're experiencing it there.
A lot of people bought up there too,
Yeah,
and
totally.
are now trying to do it short term. Now we're talking about Caribbean, Mexico, Hawaii. This is always different because people are always wanting to travel away from the United States.
Sure.
And they're so like I said, we were based in the Virgin Islands, and they had, just like in 2017 we had our big fires here, in 2017 they had their big hurricane there.
Okay. Right.
So the building story is kind of the same as it is here, that some people haven't built back at all, depending on your insurance and this and that. But people are certainly still traveling. They're kind of always going to travel. As soon as you let the gates open after COVID, people are going to want to go.
Right.
But last year it was like this feeling of sense of urgency, like we might have another lockdown kind of
Right,
thing.
right,
So
right.
people really
Yep.
traveled. But this year our calendars are very moderately filled, I would say, for those other destinations.
That's interesting. I wonder if people are going to return to renting more locally that way than going internationally. Are your international the short-term rentals that you have internationally? Do you get just clients from North America, or do you get clients from all over the world? Is there a bigger pool of potential renters that way, or do you market basically to the same people within North America?
So we as a company market basically to the same people.
Okay.
Now, when we were really focused on Italy a lot more before COVID,
Uh-huh.
we definitely had more European clients that would contact us just from the type of product that we have, because again, we're on a very high-end product that not everybody has or offers. And so we and I do work with a few different travel agencies based in the UK, but they're mostly traveling. A lot of them are traveling here. So every once in a while we get those questions for other locations. But yeah, we have people coming from Europe here to Sonoma and Napa, and wine people for
Right.
sure, food
Right.
people.
Yep. Very cool. So anything else that you want to talk about that you think is going to affect the short-term rental market or to potential people that are renting their home now and worried about things? I mean, I would assume that, or I will say that if you are a short-term renter and every now and then we get calls from people and they're worried about their rate of return, to reach out to you and potentially discuss their different options, whether it's a 30-day rental or even longer than that, a 6 month or 12 months, something of that nature. Is there anything else you want to talk about regarding what's going on in the short-term rental market?
Even though I said that I think in May it is going to get delayed out a little more, I think we will finally in 2023 have a release of short-term rental permits again in Sonoma County.
You think so? Okay.
And yes, it's not going to change in Napa. They're not going to change it. And they actually have a very strong team of people who make sure that people aren't going outside of their parameters. But I do think in Sonoma County, we're starting, the county is seeing the benefit of having this money in our communities. And so we do think that hopefully in the individual cities as well, they'll start releasing them, but at least in the unincorporated areas of Sonoma County, I think there will be more opportunity to do that. If somebody has a rental that they think would be a good fit, Beautiful Places will actually do your whole permitting for you, and we walk you through that, and we keep track of where it is in that permitting process. We're part of the Sonoma County Hospitality and permitting boards, so we're definitely here to walk somebody all the way through that process from start to finish and help them with that. And I think it's worth applying now. I think we're back in a place where it's worth it to start getting your applications in.
I'm assuming they're reviewing them on a first come first served basis.
Correct. Yeah. So they're just going to kind of get through that slog. But again, I think there's a lot of them in there that aren't even going to really qualify.
If you said this already, I'm sorry. Does anyone know how many permits are currently in the queue right now? In the
they do
queue?
know that number. I don't have that number, but there is Liza, who owns Beautiful Places, Liza Grace, she definitely has that number for sure.
It'd be interesting just to see the conversion. I'll just be curious to see,
we'll keep an eye on that.
How much it would be. Well, anything else that you want to talk about, or how about what's the best way for someone to get a hold of you if they have a short-term rental need or want to just bounce an idea or talk about the market or anything that way?
Definitely contacting me at Alyssa at LivXplore.com is really the quickest way to get in touch with me as far as that goes. I'm happy if you just have a link to some photos of your property, just want to talk to me about it, tell me about what it is and what you think that the potential is. I'm happy to explain, the process and how it goes, and also be honest about your likelihood of being able to get a permit.
Right.
I think people are not that honest about that necessarily,
that's really important.
And it is important to have somebody actually tell you the truth of hey, this is not really going to work for this, but you could potentially use your property for XYZ.
Right. So. Right. Yep. Very cool. Well, thank you. This has been a great podcast, ton of information. If you have any short-term rental needs, please get a hold of Alyssa. I'm Sean Payne, founder and principal of LivXplore Real Estate and Lifestyle. Thank you very much for joining us today. I have Isaiah Chass here, our founding agent as well. Please hit like and subscribe if you enjoyed this episode so that we can bring you more content in the future. Thanks again.
Welcome to the LivXplore Podcast. If you like what you hear, please hit like and subscribe.